A simple nurse lodges Millionaire CEO's hotel room by mistake. Now she's on a romantic trip to Paris with him. Aaliyah's eyes fluttered open, and for a moment, she looked confused. Then her gaze focused on the tall, soaking wet stranger standing in the doorway, and reality crashed down like a freight train. Why aren't you angry? Why aren't you throwing me out? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The exhausted nurse collapsed on his silk sheets worth more than her monthly rent. Completely unaware, she'd just broken into a billionaire's private sanctuary. Rain hammered against floor-to-ceiling windows as Aaliyah kicked off her worn sneakers. Too tired to notice the champagne bottle chilling nearby, or the designer suit hanging in the closet. She'd been awake for 18 hours straight, dealing with difficult patients and an even more difficult landlord who just locked her out of her apartment. The hotel key card felt like a lifeline when her friend Marcus slipped it to her during his front desk shift. "Room 1902, he'd whispered, "just for tonight." But what Marcus didn't know was that he'd grabbed the wrong key from the VIP section. This wasn't just any room. It was the penthouse suite reserved for Colton Reese, the 25-year-old tech mogul who'd built a billion-dollar empire before most people figured out their career path. As thunder crashed outside, Aaliyah pulled the Egyptian cotton sheets up to her chin, feeling safe for the first time in months. She had no idea that in exactly 27 minutes, her entire life would change forever. The man walking through that door would either destroy her world or become her salvation. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and Colton Reese stepped out, his expensive shoes clicking against marble floors. Water dripped from his dark hair as he swiped the key card, already planning his next board meeting. The merger with Davidson Tech needed his full attention, and he'd specifically chosen this hotel for its privacy and security. No interrupções, no surprises, no complicações. He pushed open the door and froze. Someone was in his bed. Not just someone, a woman with rich brown skin and natural curls spread across his pillow. Sleeping so peacefully, she looked like she belonged there. Her scrubs were folded neatly on the chair, replaced by one of his hotel robes that had somehow found its way onto her sleeping form. Colton's first instinct was to call security. His second was to call the police. But something stopped him. Maybe it was the way she'd curled up on just one side of the massive bed, leaving the rest untouched. Maybe it was the exhaustion written across her face, or the way her hand clutched the pillow like she was holding on to something precious. He cleared his throat. "Nothing." "Excuse me," he said, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to being obeyed instantly. Aaliyah's eyes fluttered open, and for a moment, she looked confused. Then her gaze focused on the tall, soaking wet stranger standing in the doorway, and reality crashed down like a freight train. "Oh my God," she whispered, sitting up quickly. The robe slipped slightly, revealing the curve of her shoulder. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I can explain. You're in my room," Colton said, but his voice lacked the anger she expected. Instead, he sounded almost curious. "Your room." Aaliyah's heart hammered against her ribs. But Marcus said, "Wait, what number is this?" 1902, the penthouse suite. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "And you are?" "Aaliyah Washington," she said, scrambling to her feet. "I'm a nurse at Mercy General. My friend works downstairs, and he said there was a room available for the night." "I swear I didn't know." "You didn't know this was occupied?" Colton interrupted, but there was no malice in his tone. Something about her panic seemed genuine. "Real? When was the last time someone had been real with him?" "No, I would never. I'm not a criminal or anything. I was just evicted and needed somewhere to sleep before my shift tomorrow." The words tumbled out in a rush. "I can leave right now. I'll pay for the sheets." Stop," Colton said, and she immediately went quiet. He studied her face, the honesty in her dark eyes, the way she unconsciously pulled the robe tighter around herself. "What's your story?" "My story? Everyone has one. What's yours?" Aaliyah stared at him. In all her years of dealing with difficult people, she'd never encountered anyone quite like this. Wealthy, obviously. Powerful, definitely. But there was something else. a loneliness that matched her own. "I help people heal," she said simply. "What's yours?" For the first time in months, Colton smiled. "I build things, and I think I just found something worth building." The storm outside seemed to quiet as they stood there, studying each other like opponents trying to figure out the next move. Aaliyah had dealt with plenty of entitled rich patients, but Colton was different. He wasn't looking at her like she was beneath him. He was looking at her like she was a puzzle he wanted to solve. "You're not calling security," she observed, surprised by her own boldness. "Should I be?" "Probably." She moved toward the chair where her scrubs lay folded. "I should go." This was clearly a mistake. Was it? Something in his tone made her pause. "What do you mean?" Colton shrugged out his wet jacket, revealing a physique that definitely didn't come from sitting behind a desk all day. "I've been staying in hotels like this for 5 years. Same routine, same isolation, same empty rooms. Tonight, for the first time, I walked in and it felt different." "Different how?" "Like someone lived here. Like it was a home instead of just another temporary stop." Aaliyah felt heat rise in her cheeks. "You're talking crazy. You don't even know me. I know you're a nurse who cares enough about people to work double shifts. I know you fold your clothes even when you're exhausted. I know you didn't take anything from this room except what you needed, sleep." He paused, watching her carefully. "And I know you're not afraid of me, even though you probably should be." "Should I be afraid of you?" "Most people are." "I am Colton Reese." The name hit her like a physical blow. She'd heard on the news, seen in magazines. The tech wunderkind who'd revolutionized digital healthcare, the youngest billionaire in Georgia, the man who could buy and sell her entire hospital without checking his bank balance. "You're the Colton Reese," she whispered. Disappointed, terrified, but she didn't move toward the door. "Why aren't you angry? Why aren't you throwing me out?" Colton moved to the window, looking out at the city lights blurred by rain. "Because in the last 6 months, I've had 3 attempts on my life, 2 hostile takeover bids, and a father who thinks I'm too soft to run the company he built. I'm supposed to be in this room planning how to crush a competitor who used to be my best friend." He turned back to her. "And instead, I'm talking to someone who doesn't want anything from me except a place to sleep." "How do you know I don't want anything?" "Because you're still trying to leave." The truth of that statement settled between them like a challenge. Aaliyah had been raised to be independent, to never rely on anyone else's charity. But something about Colton's presence made her want to stay, to understand what lay behind those intense eyes. "I have a proposal," he said suddenly. "I'm listening." "I was supposed to fly to Paris tomorrow for a conference. Business trip, all work, no pleasure. But what if?" He paused, as if testing the words. "What if I took someone with me who could show me what I've been missing? You want to take me to Paris?" Aaliyah laughed, but came out shaky. "We literally just met. The best adventures start with strangers. That's how people end up on the news, or how they end up living stories worth telling." Colton stepped closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne mixed with rain. "I'm not asking you to trust me completely. I'm asking you to trust yourself. 1 weekend, Paris, no strings attached. And if I say no, then I'll have my driver take you anywhere you want to go, and we'll pretend this never happened." Aaliyah stared at him, her mind racing. This was insane, reckless, everything her mother had warned her about. "When do we leave?" she heard herself say. 12 hours later, Aaliyah found herself in the back of a private jet, watching Georgia disappear beneath the clouds. She called in sick to work, the first time in 3 years, and packed her one good dress along with scrubs and sneakers. The whole thing felt like someone else's life. Colton sat across from her, his laptop open, but she noticed his attention kept drifting from the screen to her face. He traded his business suit for jeans and a black sweater that made his eyes look almost green in the cabin lighting. "Having second thoughts?" he asked, closing the laptop. "Third and fourth thoughts," she admitted. "My best friend thinks you're either going to murder me or sell me into human trafficking." "Smart friend. What did you tell her?" "That if I don't text her every 6 hours, she should call the FBI." Colton laughed, a real laugh that transformed his entire face. "And here I thought you trusted me. I trusted my instincts. There's a difference. What are your instincts telling you now?" Aaliyah studied him. In the close quarters of the plane, she could see details she'd missed in the hotel room. A small scar above his left eyebrow. The way he unconsciously rubbed his thumb against his index finger when he was thinking. The fact that he hadn't once checked his phone since they'd taken off. That you're running from something, she said. His smile faltered. What makes you say that? You're worth billions, but you're flying to Paris with a stranger instead of being in meetings. You said you were supposed to be planning how to crush a competitor, but you're here instead. And she hesitated. And you look at me like I'm the first real thing you've seen in a long time. The silence stretched between them, filled only by the steady hum of the engines. Finally, Colton spoke. My business partner, my best friend since college, is trying to force me out of my own company. He's been feeding information to our competitors, poisoning the board against me, making them believe I'm too young and too reckless to lead. His voice was steady, but she could hear the hurt underneath. The merger I was supposed to be working on is not just business, it's survival. So why are you here with me instead of fighting back? Because I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired of not being able to trust anyone. I'm tired of... He stopped, running a hand through his hair. When I saw you in that bed, you looked so peaceful. I realized I couldn't remember the last time I'd slept without worrying about who was going to betray me next. Aaliyah felt something shift in her chest. Is that why you brought me? To help you sleep. I brought you because you're the first person in years who looked at me and saw someone worth talking to instead of someone worth using. The plane hit a patch of turbulence, and instinctively, Aaliyah's hand shot out to steady herself. Colton caught it, his fingers warm and strong around hers. We're gonna be okay, he said softly. She wasn't sure if he was talking about the turbulence or something else entirely. Paris at sunset was everything the movies had promised and more. From their hotel suite overlooking the Seine, Aaliyah watched the Eiffel Tower light up against the darkening sky, while Colton made phone calls in rapid-fire French. She'd known he was successful, but seeing him navigate international business with the same ease most people ordered coffee was intimidating and impressive in equal measure. Sorry about that, he said, ending the call and joining her at the window. Crisis management never sleeps. Everything okay? Define okay. He loosened his tie, a gesture that somehow made him look more human. My company's stock dropped 12% while we were in the air. Someone leaked information about the merger to the press before I was ready to announce it. Someone you trust? Someone I used to trust. His jaw tightened. But enough about that. We're in Paris. What do you want to see first? They spent the evening walking along the Seine, sharing stories about their childhoods, his privileged but lonely upbringing in Silicon Valley, her middle-class life in Savannah with a mother who worked 3 jobs to pay for a nursing school. Despite their different backgrounds, they discovered an unexpected connection in their shared drive to help others and their mutual exhaustion from carrying everyone else's problems. I never asked, Colton said as they approached the Eiffel Tower. Why were you evicted? Aaliyah's steps slowed. My landlord decided he could get more rent from someone else. Gave me 3 days notice, which is illegal. But try fighting that when you're working 70-hour weeks and can't afford a lawyer. That's awful. That's life. She shrugged, but he could see the hurt in her eyes. I've been saving for a house, but every time I get close, something happens. Car breaks down, mom needs help with bills, someone at work gets sick, and I cover their shifts. You take care of everyone else. Someone has to. They reached the base of the tower, and Colton suddenly stopped walking. Come with me. Where? Up there. He pointed to the observation deck. I want to show you something. The elevator ride to the top was crowded with tourists, but Colton seemed focused only on her. When they reached the observation deck, he led her to a relatively quiet corner where the city spread out below them like a glittering map. This is beautiful, Aaliyah breathed. Look closer, he said, standing behind her. What do you see? She studied the lights, the patterns, the way the city seemed to pulse with life. I see millions of people living their lives. Working, loving, struggling, hoping. I see a system, Colton said softly. Infrastructure, networks, connections. Everything depends on everything else. One broken link can bring down the whole structure. That's a very different way of looking at it. It's the only way I know how to look at things. Until now, something in his tone made her turn around. He was closer than she'd expected, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his eyes. What changed? You did. His hand came up to cup her face. You made me see that sometimes the most important connections aren't about business or profit. Sometimes they're about finding someone who understands what it means to carry the weight of the world. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative as if he was asking permission. But when she responded, her arms coming up to circle his neck, the intensity shifted. This wasn't just attraction, it was recognition. Two people who had been drowning, separately finding they could breathe together. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Colton rested his forehead against hers. I have something to tell you, he said, about why I really brought you here. But before he could continue, his phone buzzed urgently. The screen showed a text that made his face go pale. What is it? Aaliyah asked. We need to go. Now. Back in their hotel suite, Colton paced like a caged animal while Aaliyah sat on the edge of the bed, trying to process what she'd just learned. The text had been from his head of security. They know about the girl. Get her out of there. Who knows about me? She asked for the third time. People who would use you to get to me. Colton's voice was tight with controlled anger. I should have thought about this before I brought you here. I should have. Stop. Aaliyah stood up, her nurse instincts kicking in. When people panicked, they made bad decisions. Slow down and explain this to me like I'm not a billionaire who lives in your world. Colton stopped pacing and looked at her. Even in crisis mode, she was thinking clearly, trying to help him solve the problem. It was exactly why he'd been drawn to her in the first place. My business partner, Derek, is trying to force me out of the company. He's been building a case that I'm unstable, reckless, bad for business. If he can prove I'm involved in some kind of scandal, like flying to Paris with a random woman, like flying to Paris with a woman who could be painted as a gold digger or corporate spy, or worse. He ran his hands through his hair. The media loves stories about powerful men making stupid decisions about women. So I'm your stupid decision now. No. He moved toward her, his hands reaching for hers. You're the best decision I've made in years. That's the problem. How is that a problem? Because Derek knows that. He's had me followed, probably has photographers outside right now, and he's going to use whatever he can find to destroy my reputation and my company. Aaliyah felt the familiar sensation of being in over her head, but this time it was different. This time, she wasn't just a victim of circumstances. She was part of someone else's fight. What do you want me to do? She asked. I want you to go home. Tonight, I'll have security take you to the airport. Make sure you get back safely, and we'll pretend this never happened. And you, I'll stay here, handle the conference, and figure out how to deal with Derek when I get back. Alone. It's better that way. Aaliyah studied his face, seeing the walls going back up, the distance returning to his eyes. This was what he did. He protected himself by pushing people away before they could be used against him. What if I don't want to go home? Aaliyah, what if I want to stay and fight? This isn't your fight. Maybe not. But you're not just asking me to leave Paris. You're asking me to leave you. She stepped closer, her voice soft but determined. And I'm not ready to do that. Colton stared at her, something vulnerable flickering across his features. You don't understand what you're getting into. Then explain it to me. All of it. But before he could answer, they heard voices in the hallway outside their door. Urgent voices. American voices. Too late, Colton whispered. They're here. The hotel room door burst open without warning. 3 men in expensive suits walked in like they owned the place, followed by a woman with sharp eyes and a camera. Aaliyah instinctively stepped behind Colton, her heart hammering against her ribs. Derek, Colton said, his voice deadly calm. Breaking and entering now? That's a new low, even for you. The man in the lead smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Derek Morrison looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine. Perfect hair, perfect teeth, perfect everything. But there was something cold about him that made Aaliyah's skin crawl. Relax, Cole. Hotel security let us in when we explained we were concerned about your mental state. Derek's gaze shifted to Aaliyah. Miss Washington, I presume? The nurse who's been all over the security footage at the Atlanta Marriott? How do you know my name? Aaliyah asked. I know everything about you. Your mother's medical bills, your student loans, your eviction yesterday morning. Quite the sob story. Derek pulled out his phone, showing photos of them walking along the Seine. These pictures are going to tell a very different story, though. What do you want, Derek? Colton stepped forward, positioning himself between Derek and Aaliyah. I want you to come home and face reality. The board is meeting tomorrow morning. Emergency session. Seems they've lost confidence in your leadership abilities. Derek gestured around the luxury suite. Can't imagine why. You orchestrated this. I protected the company. While you were playing house with your new girlfriend, I was cleaning up your mess. The Davidson merger is dead, by the way. They pulled out an hour ago. Aaliyah watched the color drain from Colton's face. She didn't fully understand the business implications, but she could see the devastation in his eyes. You destroyed everything I worked for, Colton said quietly. I saved everything you were about to lose. Derek's voice turned mock sympathetic. Face it, Cole, you're not cut out for this. You never were. Your father knew it. The board knows it, and deep down, you know it too. That's not true, Aaliyah said, surprising everyone, including herself. Derek raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. I said that's not true. Aaliyah stepped out from behind Colton. I don't know anything about your business world, but I know people. And I know the difference between someone who builds things and someone who destroys them. How touching, Derek said. But this is between... No, it's not. Aaliyah's voice grew stronger. You made it about me the moment you had us followed. You made it about me when you broke into our room. So let me tell you something about the man you're trying to destroy. She looked directly at Derek, her fear replaced by anger. In 2 days, he showed me more kindness than most people show in a lifetime. He's brilliant, he's compassionate, and he's everything you're not. Derek's smile finally disappeared. Miss Washington, you have no idea what you're dealing with. Neither do you, she shot back. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut. Then Derek's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression changed. Interesting, he murmured. Cole, you might want to check the news back home. Colton's phone was already ringing before Derek finished speaking. The caller ID showed his assistant Sarah, but when he answered, it was his lawyer's voice that filled the room. Colton, where are you? The story broke 20 minutes ago. What story? Someone leaked your financials to the press. Not just company finances, your personal accounts, your investments, everything. They're saying you've been embezzling funds to support a lavish lifestyle. Aaliyah watched the blood drain from Colton's face as he put the call on speaker. Derek was grinning like he'd won the lottery. That's impossible, Colton said. Every transaction is documented, every expense justified. I know that, but the media doesn't care about facts. They care about headlines. And right now, the headline is Tech Billionaire Steals from Own Company to Fund Romance with Mysterious Woman. Aaliyah felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. They're talking about me. They have photos, Miss Washington. You entering the hotel, you on the plane, you in Paris. The story is that Colton has been funding this relationship with stolen money. But that's not true, she protested. Truth is irrelevant, Derek said cheerfully. Perception is everything. And the perception is that our fearless leader has lost his mind over a woman and is willing to steal to keep her happy. You son of a... Colton started toward Derek, but Aaliyah caught his arm. Don't, she said quietly. That's what he wants. Derek's phone buzzed again. Oh, this keeps getting better. Cole, your mother just called a press conference. She's supporting the board's decision to remove you from the CEO position. Family loyalty at its finest. Words hit Colton like physical blows. Aaliyah could see him shutting down, the walls going up, the distance returning to his eyes. This was exactly what Derek had planned. Complete isolation, total destruction. Here's what's going to happen, Derek continued. You're going to come home, resign quietly, and accept a settlement package. Miss Washington is going to disappear back to her little life in Georgia, and we're all going to pretend this never happened. And if we don't, Aaliyah asked, then things get much worse for both of you. The FBI is very interested in financial crimes these days, and immigration authorities don't like it when people lie on international travel documents. I didn't lie about anything, Aaliyah said. Prove it. In court. with lawyers you can't afford, while your mother's medical bills pile up and your nursing license gets suspended pending investigation. The threat hung in the air like poison. Aaliyah realized with crystal clarity that Derek wasn't just destroying Colton. He was destroying anyone who got in his way. "You're a monster," she whispered. "I'm a businessman, and business is about making hard choices." Derek straightened his tie. "You have 24 hours to decide. Disappear quietly, or watch everything you both care about burn." He headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and Cole, your father would be so disappointed. All that potential, wasted on a woman who'll never understand your world." The door closed behind them, leaving Colton and Aaliyah alone in the wreckage of their perfect weekend. "I'm sorry," Colton said quietly. "I'm so sorry I dragged you into this." But when he looked at her, something in Aaliyah's expression made him stop. "No," she said. "You're not giving up. We're not giving up." "Aaliyah, they want a war? Let's give them one." The next morning, Aaliyah woke up to find Colton already dressed, sitting by the window with his laptop and 3 cups of coffee. He looked like he hadn't slept at all. "Tell me everything," she said, pulling on the hotel robe. "I want to understand exactly what we're fighting." "We're not fighting anything. I'm putting you on a plane home this morning." "Like hell you are." She sat down across from him, ignoring his surprised look. "I'm not some fragile flower who runs at the first sign of trouble. I grew up in Savannah, Georgia. I know how to fight. This isn't a fair fight, Aaliyah. Derek has resources, connections, lawyers. And what do you have?" Colton looked at her like she'd lost her mind. "Right now? Nothing. My company, my reputation, my family. He's taken everything. He's taken your business. He hasn't taken you." She reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. "Look at me. What do you have?" "I don't. You have me. You have the truth. And you have something Derek doesn't." "What's that?" "You actually care about people. That matters." She squeezed his hand. "Now tell me everything. How did you build this company? What makes it special? What does Derek actually want?" For the next hour, Colton laid out the whole story. He'd started the company with Derek in college, building healthcare software that could save lives. While Colton focused on the technology and patient care, Derek handled the business side. Over the years, Derek had grown more focused on profits than people, pushing for deals that would make money but compromise the software's integrity. The Davidson merger wasn't about growth, Colton explained. It was about selling our patient data to insurance companies. Derek saw dollar signs. "I saw betrayal of everything we built, so he decided to get rid of you. He's been planning this for months. The leaked financials, the photos, even your eviction. I'm starting to think none of it was coincidence." Aaliyah felt a chill run down her spine. "What do you mean?" "Derek's thorough. If he wanted to destroy me, he'd need the perfect weapon. What better than a woman who'd look like a gold digger to the media, but would actually make me care enough to be reckless? You think he arranged for me to be in your hotel room? I think he arranged for your eviction, knowing you'd need a place to stay. I think he made sure Marcus had access to that key card. And I think he's been counting on me falling for you." The words should have hurt, but instead, Aaliyah felt something else, determination. "Well, he got that part right." "What?" "You did fall for me, and I fell for you, which means he underestimated both of us." Colton stared at her. "You're not angry?" "I am furious, but not at you." She stood up, pacing to the window. "He used my mother's medical bills, my eviction, my desperation. He played with people's lives like they were pieces on a chessboard. So what do? We beat him at his own game." She turned back to Colton, and he was struck by the fierce intelligence in her eyes. "You said he's been planning this for months. That means he's left a trail. Phone records, financial transactions, meetings with board members. Even if we could prove it, we need evidence that would hold up in court. Then we get evidence. Who do you trust? Really trust?" Colton thought for a moment. "My head of security, Marcus Chung. He's been with me for 3 years. Clean record, no connection to Derek. Call him. Have him start digging into Derek's activities over the past 6 months. Focus on anything connected to my eviction, the hotel key mix-up, the leaked photos. And what are we going to do? We're going to go home and face this head on, but not as victims." Aaliyah's smile was sharp enough to cut glass. "As partners." The private jet touched down in Atlanta at 3 a.m. under cover of darkness. Marcus Chun was waiting at the airport with a black SUV and a security detail that looked like they meant business. Aaliyah had never seen anything like it. Men in dark suits, talking into earpieces, scanning the area like they expected trouble. "Mr. Reese," Marcus said, his voice crisp and professional. "We have a situation." "How bad?" "Your penthouse is surrounded by reporters. Your mother's house too. And Miss Washington's apartment building has been crawling with photographers since yesterday." Aaliyah felt her stomach drop. "My mother, is she okay?" "She's fine. My team moved her to a secure location this morning. She's asking for you. I need to see her." "That's not safe right now," Marcus said. "Derek's people are watching every place you might go. Then we need to be smarter than they are." Colton turned to Aaliyah. "Are you ready for this?" She looked out at the city lights, thinking about everything that had brought them to this moment. 2 days ago, she'd been a struggling nurse with no place to sleep. Now she was in the middle of a corporate war that could destroy them both. "I'm ready." They drove through the empty streets to a safe house in Buckhead, a nondescript office building that Marcus's security company used for sensitive operations. The 20th floor had been converted into a temporary command center, complete with computers, phones, and walls covered in photos and documents. "What am I looking at?" Aaliyah asked, studying the evidence Marcus had compiled. "Derek's web of lies," Marcus replied. "He's been planning this takedown for 8 months. Look at this timeline." He pointed to a chart showing Derek's movements. March 15th, he met with 3 board members at a private club. March 20th, he hired a private investigator to dig into Colton's personal life. April 2nd, he started feeding information to reporters about the company's financial status. "And my eviction?" Aaliyah asked. April 10th, Derek's shell company bought your apartment building. The eviction notice was dated April 12th. The pieces clicked into place like a puzzle. "He bought my building just to throw me out?" "He needed you desperate enough to accept help from stranger." The hotel key mix-up, your friend Marcus getting access to VIP cards. Derek arranged all of it. Colton was studying the financial records. He's been stealing from the company for months, moving money through offshore accounts. The leaked documents showing my supposed embezzlement? They're actually his transactions with my name digitally inserted. "Can we prove that?" "We can prove it," Marcus said, "but we need to be careful how we do it. Derek's expecting us to go public with accusations. He's prepared for that. So what do we do instead?" "We let him think he's won," Colton said slowly. "I show up to the board meeting tomorrow, ready to resign. Broken, defeated, exactly what he expects. And then we spring the trap. But we'll need help from someone Derek trusts completely." Aaliyah looked at the photos on the wall. Derek with board members, Derek with reporters, Derek with his assistant. Who? Someone who's been watching him destroy everything she helped build. Someone who's finally ready to do the right thing. Marcus smiled grimly. His own assistant, Sarah Martinez. She's been feeding us information for weeks. Will she testify? She'll do better than that. She's been recording everything. The boardroom at Reese Technologies felt like a courtroom. 12 executives sat around a polished conference table, their faces carefully neutral as Colton walked in. Derek was already there, looking confident and relaxed. He'd won, and everyone knew it. "Colton," the chairman said formally, "thank you for coming. We have some difficult matters to discuss." "I'm sure you do." Colton took his seat at the head of the table, his expression resigned. "I assume you've all seen the news reports." "We have," said Margaret Chun, the CFO. "These allegations about financial impropriety are very serious." "They're also false," Colton said quietly. "But I understand your position. The company's reputation is more important than any individual." Derek leaned forward slightly. "Cole, we've been friends for a long time. This isn't personal. It's business." "Is it?" Colton pulled out a manila envelope. "Because it feels pretty personal to me." The room went silent. Derek's confident smile flickered for just a moment. "What's in the envelope, Colton?" the chairman asked. "Evidence. Phone records, financial transactions, recorded conversations. Everything you need to understand what's really been happening here." Derek stood up. "This is desperate, Cole. You're grasping at straws. Am I? Colton opened the envelope and spread photos across the table. These are pictures of you meeting with board members over the past 6 months. Private meetings, undisclosed meetings, meetings where you discussed removing me from the company. Board members are allowed to talk to each other, Derek said, but his voice was tighter now. They're not allowed to conspire to manipulate stock prices. They're not allowed to leak confidential information to the press. And they're certainly not allowed to embezzle funds to finance their conspiracy. Margaret Chun picked up one of the photos. Derek, is this you at the Harbor Club with James Patterson from the Wall Street Journal? I can explain. Can you explain this? Colton played an audio recording on his phone. Derek's voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable. The key is making it look like Colton's losing his mind. If we can find the right woman, someone desperate enough to be grateful, attractive enough to be believable, we can make him look reckless and unstable. The board members exchanged glances. This wasn't just about business anymore. Where did you get this? Derek demanded. Someone who got tired of watching you destroy everything we built. Colton nodded toward the door. Sarah Martinez walked in, carrying a briefcase and looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. She'd been Derek's assistant for 5 years, privy to every conversation, every meeting, every plan. Sarah, Derek said, his voice dangerously low. What are you doing? The right thing, she said simply. Finally, she opened the briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. Financial records showing how Derek has been moving money through shell companies. Email chains detailing his plan to frame Colton. And recordings of every conversation about manipulating Miss Washington's situation. You recorded me? I recorded everything. Your meetings with board members, your calls to reporters, your instructions to buy Miss Washington's apartment building just to evict her. Sarah's voice was steady, professional. I have 18 months of evidence. The room erupted in whispers. Derek looked around the table, seeing his support crumbling in real time. You don't understand, he said desperately. Colton's not capable of running this company. He's too soft, too idealistic. He'll destroy everything we've built. No, said the chairman, standing up. You already did that. Security guards appeared at the door. Margaret Chun was already on her phone with the FBI. The other board members were distancing themselves from Derek as fast as possible. This isn't over, Derek said as the guard approached. Yes, it is, Colton replied. It's been over since the moment you decided to use innocent people as weapons. As Derek was led away, Colton felt something he hadn't experienced in months. Peace. The war was over, but the real battle, rebuilding everything Derek had tried to destroy, was just beginning, and he wouldn't be fighting it alone. 3 weeks later, Aaliyah stood in the lobby of Reese Technologies, watching employees stream past her with curious glances. The media circus had died down, but she could still feel the weight of their stares. The nurse who'd brought down a billion-dollar conspiracy. The woman who'd saved their CEO. The story had taken on a life of its own. You ready for this? Colton asked, appearing at her elbow in a sharp navy suit. Define ready, she said, smoothing down her new dress. It was the first time she'd worn something that cost more than her weekly grocery budget, and she felt like she was playing dress-up. The board wants to meet you officially. Thank you for your role in exposing Derek's scheme. And after that, we figure out what comes next. They'd been staying in separate hotel rooms since returning from Paris, giving each other space to process everything that had happened. The attraction was still there, stronger than ever, if anything. But the circumstances of their meeting had left them both questioning what was real and what was manipulation. The boardroom looked different in daylight, less like a battlefield, more like a place where important decisions were made. The 12 executives who'd witnessed Derek's downfall were now looking at Aaliyah with something approaching respect. Miss Washington, the chairman said, standing as she entered. On behalf of the entire board, I want to thank you for your courage. I just did what was right, Chairman. You did more than that. You saved this company and everyone who depends on it. Margaret Chin smiled warmly. We'd like to offer you a position here, Director of Patient Advocacy. You'd oversee our healthcare software development. Make sure we're always putting patients first. Aaliyah felt her breath catch. I appreciate the offer, but I'm not qualified for her. You're the most qualified person we could find, Colton interrupted. You understand patient care better than anyone in this room. You've seen what happens when technology serves people instead of profits. The salary would be substantial, the chairman added. Health insurance, stock options, your own team. You'd report directly to Colton. Think about it, Colton said quietly. You wanted to help people. This would let you help millions of people. After the meeting, they walked through downtown Atlanta in comfortable silence. The city felt different now, less overwhelming, more like a place where she could belong. You don't have to take the job because of me, Colton said finally. I know that. And you don't have to stay in Atlanta because of me. I know that too. They stopped at a crosswalk, waiting for the light to change. Around them, the city hummed with life. People heading home from work, couples meeting for dinner, students rushing to evening classes. So what do you want to do? He asked. I want to take the job, she said. Not because of you, but because it's the right thing to do. And us. We start over. From the beginning. No hotels, no mix-ups, no billionaires and nurses. Just Colton and Aaliyah figuring out if what we felt was real. He smiled. I'd like that. Good. Because I'm not going anywhere. 6 months later, Aaliyah had her own office on the 20th floor of Reese Technologies, with a view of the city and a team of 15 software developers who actually listened when she talked about patient needs. She discovered she had a talent for translating medical requirements into technical specifications, and more importantly, for making sure technology served humanity instead of the other way around. The diabetes monitoring app is ready for beta testing, her assistant Kevin announced, sticking his head through her door. We've got 50 volunteer patients signed up. Perfect. Make sure they understand this is about improving their lives, not just collecting data. Already handled. Also, Mr. Reese wants to see you in his office. Aaliyah smiled. Even after 6 months, the staff was still formal about her relationship with Colton. They'd been dating properly. Real dates, not crisis management, but kept their professional and personal lives carefully separate. She found him at his desk, surrounded by monitors showing stock prices, development timelines, and patient satisfaction scores. The company had not only recovered from Derek's sabotage, but was thriving under new leadership focused on ethics and patient care. You wanted to see me? She asked, closing the door behind her. I have news. Good news and complicated news. Give me the good news first. The FDA approved our new surgery scheduling software. Hospitals can start using it next month, which means we'll help coordinate thousands of life-saving procedures. That's amazing. She moved around his desk to hug him, still amazed by how natural it felt to be in his arms. What's the complicated news? My mother wants to meet you. Officially, Aaliyah pulled back. Your mother who supported the board's decision to remove you from the company? The same one. She's been trying to apologize for months, but I haven't been ready to hear it. And now you are. Now I think it's time to rebuild some bridges. If you're willing. They talked about his family before. The pressure, the expectations, the way wealth had isolated him from normal relationships. His mother's betrayal during the crisis had cut deep, but Aaliyah understood family complications better than most. Where does she want to meet? That's the thing. She's invited us to dinner at her house in Buckhead. This Sunday. The mansion with the gates and the security cameras? That's the one. Aaliyah had grown up in a 3-bedroom house in Savannah, where her mother worked 3 jobs to keep the lights on. The idea of dinner at a multi-million-dollar estate was intimidating, but she'd learned to face her fears head-on. Will she try to buy me off or threaten me? Probably both, Colton said honestly. She's protective of the family image. Good thing I'm not easily intimidated anymore. Is that a yes? It's a yes, but I'm wearing my own clothes, not some designer outfit she picks out. Deal. And Aaliyah, yeah. Thank you for everything, for staying, for fighting, for making me remember what's actually important. You don't have to thank me for falling in love with you. I do, actually, because I never thought anyone would. The Reese family mansion looked like something from a movie. Towering columns, manicured gardens, and enough space to house a small village. Aaliyah had driven her own car, a practical Honda that looked embarrassingly out of place next to the luxury vehicles in the circular driveway. "You don't have to prove anything to her," Colton said as they walked to the front door. "I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm just being myself. That's what I'm worried about." She's not used to people being real with her. The door opened before they could knock. Patricia Reese stood in the doorway, perfectly dressed and perfectly composed, her silver hair arranged in an elegant updo. She looked exactly like the society pages had trained Aaliyah to expect. "Colton," she said, her voice carefully neutral. "Thank you for coming." "Mother." He kissed her cheek dutifully. "This is Aaliyah Washington. Miss Washington, I've heard so much about you. Hopefully some of it was good," Aaliyah replied, extending her hand. Patricia's handshake was firm, her gaze assessing. "Please come in. Dinner will be ready shortly." The house was museum-perfect, crystal chandeliers, antique furniture, and artwork that probably cost more than most people's annual salaries. But felt cold, lifeless, like a showroom rather than a home. "You have a beautiful house," Aaliyah said politely. "Thank you. It's been in the family for 3 generations." They settled in the formal dining room, where the table was set with china that looked too expensive to actually use. Patricia had clearly planned this evening carefully. The lighting, the flowers, the wine selection. Everything designed to intimidate. "So, Miss Washington," Patricia said as the first course was served, "Colton tells me you've been instrumental in the company's recent success. I've tried to help where I can. The patient advocacy program has been rewarding. And before that, you were a nurse?" "I still am a nurse. I just have a different way of helping people now." Patricia sipped her wine, studying Aaliyah over the rim of her glass. "It must be quite an adjustment, from working in a hospital to dining in places like this." The comment was designed to make Aaliyah feel out of place, but she'd dealt with difficult people before. The adjustment has been learning to work with people who've never worried about whether they could afford their medication. Colton nearly choked on his wine. Patricia's eyebrows rose slightly. "I see you're very direct. I find it saves time." "Mother," Colton interrupted. "You said you wanted to apologize." Patricia set down her glass and looked at her son. "I did. I do. Colton, I'm sorry for not supporting you during the crisis with Derek. I was scared of losing the company, scared of the scandal, scared of what people would think. You chose appearances over your own son. I chose what I thought was best for the family. I was wrong." The admission hung in the air between them. Aaliyah could see the pain in both their faces, years of misunderstanding and misconnections. "I want to make it right," Patricia continued. "Both of you. I want to understand what makes you happy, Colton. And I want to get to know the woman who helped you find your way back to yourself. That's not going to happen overnight," Aaliyah said quietly. "I know, but I'm willing to try if you are." For the first time since they'd arrived, Patricia's smile looked genuine. 1 year after the hotel mix-up that started everything, Aaliyah stood in the same suite where they'd first met. But this time it was different. This time, she was here by choice, not desperation. The room had been transformed, candles everywhere, rose petals scattered across the bed, and soft music playing from hidden speakers. "You're being ridiculous," she called out to Colton, who was somewhere in the bathroom, probably overthinking his hair. "I'm being romantic," he called back. "There's a difference. This is the same room where you found me passed out in your bed wearing your bathrobe. I'm not sure romance is the right word. That's exactly why it's romantic." This is where our story began. She walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Atlanta had become home in a way she'd never expected. The job at Reese Technologies had evolved into something she loved. They just launched a program that provided free healthcare software to rural hospitals, and she was traveling the country training nurses to use it. "Are you ready?" Colton asked, stepping out of the bathroom. She turned around and immediately burst out laughing. He was wearing a hotel bathrobe, the same kind she'd been wearing when he found her, over his dress shirt and tie. "You look ridiculous. I look like a man who's not afraid to be vulnerable." He moved toward her, his expression suddenly serious. "Aaliyah, a year ago, I thought I had everything. Money, success, respect. But I was lonely, paranoid, and slowly losing myself to a world that didn't care about anything real." "Colton, let me finish." He reached for her hands. You changed everything. Not just by helping me see Derek's betrayal, but by showing me what it means to care about something bigger than myself. You already cared about people. You just forgot for a while. I forgot because I didn't have anyone to remind me. You remind me every day that success isn't about what you accumulate. It's about what you contribute. He dropped to one knee, pulling out a ring box. Aaliyah's breath caught in her throat. This isn't about money or contracts or mergers. This is about the fact that I can't imagine facing another day without you beside me. You make me want to be better, do better, love better. Colton, Aaliyah Washington, will you marry me? The ring was beautiful, a simple solitaire that caught the candlelight perfectly. But what made her eyes fill with tears wasn't the diamond. It was the way he was looking at her, like she was the most precious thing in his world. Yes, she whispered. Yes, of course. He slipped the ring on her finger with shaking hands, then stood up and kissed her with a passion that reminded her of their first kiss on top of the Eiffel Tower. But this kiss was different. It wasn't desperate or uncertain. It was the kiss of two people who had chosen each other completely. I love you, she said against his lips. I love your brilliant mind and your generous heart and your terrible habit of overthinking everything. I love you too. I love your strength and your compassion and the way you never let me take the easy way out. They held each other in the candlelit room, surrounded by the ghosts of their beginning. Outside, the city hummed with life. Millions of people living their own stories, facing their own challenges, finding their own ways to connect. So what happens now? Aaliyah asked. Now we plan a wedding. Now we build a life together. Now we help other people find what we found. And if we hit obstacles, then we face them together. Like we always have. She smiled, thinking about the journey that had brought them here. I never thought I'd be grateful for getting evicted. I never thought I'd be grateful for corporate espionage. We're weird people. We're perfect people. For each other. 5 years later, Aaliyah stood in the nursery of their Buckhead home, watching 3-year-old Marcus sleep in his crib. He was named after the security chief who'd helped them expose Derek's conspiracy, and he had his father's eyes and his mother's stubborn streak. He's finally down, Colton whispered, appearing in the doorway. For now, give him 20 minutes and he'll be asking for water. Just like his mama, never stays quiet for long. She laughed softly, following him out of the room. Their house was nothing like the mansion where she'd first met Patricia. It was warm, lived in, filled with photos and laughter and the beautiful chaos of a real family. How was your day? She asked as they settled on the couch. Good. The new children's hospital software is testing well. We should be able to roll it out nationwide by Christmas. That's amazing. How many kids will that help? Thousands, maybe millions, eventually. He pulled her closer. What about you? How did the interview go? They offered me the position, director of the National Patient Advocacy Foundation. That's incredible. Are you going to take it? I want to, but it would mean traveling more, being away from you and Marcus. We'll figure it out. We always do. She curled up against him, marveling at how natural this felt. The quiet evening conversations, the shared dreams, the way they'd learned to be partners in everything. Do you ever think about that night? She asked. The hotel mix-up? Every day. Best mistake I ever made. It wasn't a mistake. Not really. Maybe Derek orchestrated the circumstances, but what happened between us, that was real. You think we would have found each other anyway? I think we were meant to find each other. Maybe not in a hotel room, maybe not during a corporate conspiracy, but somehow, somewhere. I love that theory. I love you. I love you too. Both of you, he added, glancing toward the nursery. Outside, Atlanta sparkled in the darkness, full of people living their own stories, making their own choices, finding their own ways to connect. But inside their home, Aaliyah and Colton had found something rare, a love that had survived crisis, grown through challenges, and become the foundation for a life neither of them could have imagined. Their story had begun with a mix-up, but it had become something beautiful, something real, something worth fighting for. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed the story, subscribe for more amazing tales, and comment below to let us know what you thought about Aaliyah and Colton's journey. What would you have done in their situation? Share your thoughts with our amazing community.